Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like there's been some very surprising news. Wuthering Waves, alongside a slew of other games released in 2024, where some of these are in Japanese, so I won't be able to read them. We got the Pokemon TCG. I do believe this is Idolmaster. And one other thing that looks like a dog with a samurai hat. A lot of games have been winning some awards after their debut in 2024. And Wuthering Waves won Best Open World Adventure Game. And you know who sponsored these awards? You know who's giving them out? It's somebody, an organization, a company that aggregates data and provides estimations. It's one that we're very familiar with. After years of Gacha PvP and Gacha War and those monthly revenue charts that nobody's really covering anymore. It's none other, ladies and gentlemen, than SensorTower. And boy, oh boy, this means a lot. SensorTower is a website where their data was effectively repackaged and abused to create those Gacha revenue PvP charts that were really prevalent on the r/Gacha Gaming subreddit. We simply went ahead and we talked about the true nature of this data, how it was only really representing one piece of the pie, how there were a lot of additional estimations being made by the curator of the Gacha revenue website that manipulated SensorTower's numbers even further to draw their own conclusions. What that website did was they took a 1.75x multiplier for fun and just applied it to SensorTower's numbers. And so when we think about it that way, all of those inaccuracies, all of that speculation, a lot of it wasn't necessarily the SensorTower organization. It was somebody that had a membership for their data and then went ahead and decided to repackage it, add their own calculations, and essentially, right, lie for fun and not fully reveal how they're actually getting that data unless you're digging into things like their FAQ and finding it out for yourself. So a lot of misinformation, a lot of unjust conclusions that led to a lot of people clowning on Wuwa across this early couple of months. And of course, the game is doing quite good in the present. You had the CEO himself, Solon, telling all of us that 2.0 was one of the most successful days of revenue they've ever had. So that whole, all the rumors of EOS, oh, the Genshin killer is killed, completely irrelevant. And there's one community in particular on Reddit, I've already mentioned them once, who's naturally not going to be very happy with that. And that, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is r/Gacha Gaming themselves. The subreddit that has had that beautiful toy, the Gacha Revenue website, essentially taken away from them. Not a lot of CCs are covering it anymore. There's maybe like one or two, but at the end of the day, they're doing it more for fun, not to really drive that whole PvP angle. And this post shows all the different winners. Gakuin Idolmaster for Best Simulation Game. Cool. AFK Journey for Best Fantasy RPG. Cool. Love and D-Space for Best Interactive Story. Cool. Pokemon TCG. Solo Leveling Arise. Surprised they won anything, to be honest. And of course, at the end, for Best Open World Adventure Game, Wuthering Waves. And you can imagine, right? There's probably a couple of games missing on here. This post only has 271 upvotes. I guarantee you that if there were other games listed here, right? Maybe some games that were under the Hoyoverse umbrella, this would have a lot more upvotes. So let's go ahead, right? Let's dig into this. Let's read a little bit more about how this community feels about these awards. We got Lether1 asking, was there no category for ZZZ? LOL, I guess the closest is the debut one. Guys, if they had a category for maybe something like platformers, for best 2D gameplay, I think ZZZ would have been eligible for it, but I think they went ahead and they removed the TVs after launch, so that is no longer something that they can do. So I don't think ZZZ is eligible for any of the awards that they had listed up. It's not open world, and it's, I think maybe debut game is the only thing that would have worked, but then it got drowned out by Pokemon TCG. Reminder that some people are pushing the agenda that a certain streamer runs SensorTower to fake numbers on a certain revenue game. That is incorrect. Everybody knows that SensorTower doesn't make the revenue charts. Or if you do think SensorTower themselves makes the revenue charts, you're dumb. What somebody does is they take the data from SensorTower, they manipulate the data, and then they go ahead and present it as the chart. So it's not SensorTower doing it. That's like saying you went ahead and you looked in the phone book to find a number, and you're saying it's the phone book that called you, or the company that made the phone book. No, it was the person that looked in the phone book to find your number and then called that number. That's the person who called you. So that's wrong. And now we've got this post over here, right? Talking about all the various reasons why the different games won, right? You can see over here, this is an opinion piece. You can see in this post, it is an opinion piece by Nan Lu. And Nan Lu is the individual, right, who gave all the different reasoning, who gave all of the statistics, all of the numbers for why these various games won all of these different awards. And so the funniest thing is that all of the information is pretty clear. They're looking at the games that debuted in 2024. They're talking a bit about what makes them all great, what makes them a leader in the space, and why they're actually winning this award in the first place. Pretty clear stuff. It should be, for anybody that clicks into the actual article and looks up the information, the story should be clear cut. However, it isn't for a lot of people. And when you understand how the r/Gacha Gaming subreddit works, it'll become a lot more clear. Well, the Wuwa community even acknowledged this award, Pushin Master. They don't trust SensorTower data. So this is the thing, guys. Again, and I'll state it for the third time. The Gacha revenue websites of the past and the ones that were very, I'm just gonna... Everyone is familiar, or if you've been in the Gacha space for a while, you're pretty familiar with what this chart was. And the fact about this chart is that what it did, they would take SensorTower's numbers. They would go ahead and multiply them by an arbitrary number of like between 1.75 to 2.5 to guesstimate what the revenue was, and essentially make up millions of dollars in revenue to categorize and rank all of the different games. I simply went ahead, revealed that information because it wasn't clear to anybody who's simply viewing this. You get no disclaimer about the fact that all the numbers are essentially made up, and then explained all of that. And now, Wuwa players, or honestly just Gacha players as a whole, they don't trust these things. SensorTower's numbers are rooted in reality, but when you take those numbers rooted in reality and then apply more random multiples to them that are just completely arbitrary, then that's when stuff starts getting a little bit fishy. That's when stuff starts getting a little bit dicey. But the best part about all of this, right, is the fact that they're assuming that these awards are entirely based off of data. That they're not at all based off of the personal opinion about the people playing it, about, actual opinion pieces, which is what the article is in the first place. And the best part about all of this, right, is that this article confirms, among the multitude of games released in 2024, keyword released in 2024, it stands out as the leader in downloads, revenue, and monthly active users in the open world category. Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to be a bit of a pop quiz, and the answer is pretty simple. What other open world games actually released in 2024? 2024 mobile open world. Let's just look it up. This is the best one I could find. Wuthering Waves is not even on here. Car X Street, GTA San Andreas, Netflix. What are even these games? What are these? They're just either like mobile game. They're like PS2 games that are repackaged for mobile. They're not even like gacha games. Wuthering Waves isn't even on here. And this is the thing, guys. What this confirms is that these rankings are entirely based off of just games that debuted in 2024. And it's pretty fair to say there's just not a lot of competition in the first place across the open world category for a game like Wuwa to have. And one read of this article would essentially confirm that. But of course, right, the r/Gacha Gaming subreddit has to find some way to get back at me, has to find some way to get back at Wuwa. And thankfully, we've got people in the comments section telling them what the real deal is. If you read the article, it's just grouping it into a category, then picking the best out of the group. It's basically Google Play's editor's choice, but for SensorTower. No mention of data or earnings. Heck, even those weird clickbait Facebook game ads won a category. So, that's one thing. Blood is the entire circus. The funniest part about calling me the entire circus is how horribly over 66 people misunderstood what these rankings, what these awards are even for. They just simply look at a piece of data, they look at an award, they look at a piece of information, they don't dig deeper, and then they dive into everything that it could mean. And unfortunately, it's the same exact thing that they would do for the SensorTower revenue in the first place. They look at what they're presented, they take all of it at face value, they take everything at face value and then draw conclusions off of it without going ahead and then even taking the additional step to do more of that research. And unfortunately, right, that is the sign of somebody who, frankly, isn't very intelligent. And this subreddit is filled to the brim with those individuals. But thankfully, right, we are seeing some people who have some sort of grasp on reality here. It's an award based on opinions of whoever is running it. It's not objective like revenue charts. I play ZZZ, Genshin, and Wuwa, blah, blah, blah. But definitely no doubt Genshin is making more money. That's the thing. It's not even based off of money, but people are going to make it based off of money. And I'll repeat the same analogy that I've repeated over and over and over and over again when it comes to,
oh, the game's low revenue? It has to be bad. Or, my game is the highest revenue. It's the best game ever.
And that analogy is, ladies and gentlemen, Comcast and internet service. Comcast makes the most money out of all internet service providers, ISPs. Does that mean that Comcast provides the best service or the best product? Oh, but they make the most money. They've got to be the best product ever. Otherwise, they wouldn't be making so much money. It turns out that simply having big market share and, in a way, a monopoly in a lot of people's minds, or in Comcast's case, region, that doesn't mean that they're actually best company ever. It just means that they're able to find the best ways to either abuse their customers, to have like non-competes in certain areas, a little bit like how Hoyoverse does with CCs, and manipulate, right, their audience that way through those unfair means. And that's kind of, right, the whole situation that we have going on over here. Massive market share from releasing during COVID. Massive market share, right, from a lot of people having super parasocial attachments to their characters. You know, Genshin Impact basically becoming a substitute for human interaction for a lot of individuals. That is what those revenues numbers, right, are riding on a majority of the time. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the product is the best or that the product is amazing. We all know how absolutely ridiculously, absurdly predatory the 5.3 patch was with Mavuika and Solali as the on-banner characters. And guess what? That was one of Genshin's best patches ever. But was that good? Was that good for the game? Undeniably, no. And guess what, guys? Revenue doesn't mean everything. It turns out you don't need to have the highest revenue ever to add features that are amazing. Example number 1. Yeah, you don't really need high revenue. Genshin-kun, are you watching? Hey, maybe with all the earnings from the Solali Mavuika banner, Genshin Impact players will finally see this in their game. Maybe with all the budget saved in Honkai Star Rail 3.0 and 3.1, because they have no actual cutscenes, they have no animations. They spent about $5 on the rigging of all the models for Amphorius. Maybe they'll be able to use that saved budget and add loadouts. Oh, and for ZZZ, hey, maybe with all the earnings from Miyabi and the fact that ZZZ has like a filler patch every other version, maybe they'll be able to use that saved budget to add loadouts too, right? But hey, right, Wuthering Waves, the game that's supposed to be making the least, is coming out with the best features. It's coming out with features that are better than the other 3 games combined. The other big 3 gacha games, it's coming out with features that are better than all 3 of them combined. And guess what, guys? Maybe that's why it's won this award. Maybe that's why it won the PlayStation Award. Maybe that's why this game is going to be earning probably the most rewards out of any open world gacha game for the foreseeable future. The only thing that they didn't win was the fucking Balatro one for the Game Awards. That's the only thing that they honestly didn't win. But everything else, hey, deserved. Completely, absolutely deserved. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, of course, if you're watching this video on my channel, you probably already know how absurdly ridiculous and stupid this subreddit is. But you can simply just view this as another reason. Because these people are going to draw conclusions about Wuba. They're going to spread misinformation about how we hate SensorTower's numbers, even though it's literally the people that are abusing SensorTower's numbers. And they'll fail to realize that these results and these awards aren't even entirely based on numbers. It's judged by a panel to decide what is actually the best game. So with that, let me know what you all think. I think that this is an interesting situation, but also a ridiculous one. And of course, it spawned from r/gacha gaming. So with that, let me know what you all think. Peace out.